Good morning. Welcome and thank you for your interest to participate in today's Civil Society seminar. This is our 8th seminar on the digital euro, and we are happy to see such continuous interest in our work. And we are very pleased to welcome a guest today, Mireia Jambrick from the European consumer organization BEUC, today here online. And I'm also joined in the room by Evelien Witlox, our project director, and Nico Schmidt, user research and experimentation lead. My name is Fabian Geuther, and I work here together with Evelien and Nico in the Digital Euro project. We have moved to a new phase at the beginning of this month, and we found that's a good opportunity to reconnect with you where the Digital Euro project currently stands and with new insights to share. Today's seminar will focus on how the digital euro will adapt our currency to the digital age and meet everyday needs. Our seminar consists of 2 parts. Firstly, Mireia, Nico, and Evelien will present, and afterwards we will give you the opportunity to ask questions. Just briefly on housekeeping, we would really appreciate if you turn your camera on so that we can see whom we are talking to. And we would kindly like to ask you to keep your microphones off until we move to the Q&A. The event is being recorded and live streamed. So for those that follow our discussion live that are not inside the seminar, you can also submit questions to our speakers with the QR code shown on the screen. We will publish the recordings and the slides after the event on our website. And with that, over to Mireia for your presentation.
Thank you very much, and hi everyone. So indeed now I'm going to present you the results from a survey that we carried out in BEUC this summer and that we summarized into a report that we published on September. So next slide, please. I'll start with a bit of context. So the survey was conducted in 10 euro area countries, the ones that you can see on the slide. And as part of a call from tender from the European Central Bank to conduct independent user research to inform the design of the digital euro, we collected 1,000 responses more or less per country. So we gathered 10,000 responses. And instead of asking about the digital euro directly, we were asking about digital payments. And from there, we took the responses to inform the design of the digital euro. And maybe as a news in this research, we developed a separate questionnaire for teens, so people aged 14 to 17 years old, as they weren't included in previous research. So throughout the whole report, you can see also the data for different ages, including teens. So now starting with the content, one of the questions we asked was that if okay, sorry, I thought that they couldn't hear me or something. All good. That if a new digital payment method was introduced, which are the most important features that it should have? And in order of importance, the answers are the ones that we can see on the screen. So in the first place, that it's secure and reliable, followed by that it's easy to use, that has no or lower fees, that offers refunds in case of fraud, ensures privacy, and that it's widely accepted. Here are 36% that I see that's missing. So now I'm going to present you some findings on these characteristics in the next slide, starting with security and fraud concerns. So we saw from the data that the concerns about security are high across all age groups. For instance, 82% of adults and 77% of teens said that they are concerned about becoming victims of online fraud, scams, or cyber attacks. And in fact, 22% of adults and 18% of teens said that they had been a victim of a fraud or security breach related to a digital payment that they made in the past 5 years. So from our perspective, these are very high numbers, and especially for teens, to our surprise. And also when we asked which type of fraud they were victim to, they said, most of the answers said that it was phishing. Then when we asked about the possibility to be refunded in case of fraud or scams, 85% of both adults and teens said that they believe that they should be refunded in case they are victims. So in light of this, BEUC's recommendations for the Digital Euro project is that it offers strong fraud prevention before the fraud happens and protection. So a strong protection, for example, easy refund procedures and having dispute resolution systems, so similar to the ones that we have now for international card schemes, so covering a wide range of disputes, commercial disputes. Then I'll move to the second topic, which are the results related to ease of use and inclusion. So here we saw that cards are the preferred payment method for adults, both online and physical shops, and for teens online. So then we also, from the data, we saw that 88% of both adults and teens believe that every bank account should offer a free payment card, so cards are very valued. And 85% of both adults and teens believe that everyone should have access to a basic bank account free of charge. Then from the answers, we also saw that existing payment methods are not accessible enough, as more than half of the respondents, so 55% adults, 51% of teens, said that they had faced at least one difficulty when making digital payments. These range from website crashes, declined payments, lack of skills, forgotten passwords, or even having concerns about security. And then also 39% of adults and 46% of teens said that they had helped a friend or family make a digital payment. And when we asked about the reasons, it was mainly because the person who needed to make the payment didn't know how to do it. So lack of skills and not knowing how to make the payment. So from these findings, what BEUC recommends for the Digital Euro is, in the first place, that a payment card is included as a basic service, as we see that it's the preferred payment method, that the European Accessibility Act standards are fully implemented and exceeded in the Digital Euro as a public solution that fills this accessibility gap, and that in-person support is available to all consumers that wish to have human advice without entry requirements, meaning, like, for instance, that it's not only available for those who are in a vulnerable situation, but for everyone. And from here, I'll move to my last slide, which is relating to the attitudes towards privacy and data sharing. And here from the results, we saw that consumers are more comfortable sharing data for fraud prevention and anti-money laundering checks, and that willingness to share lowers for commercial purposes or with third parties. We can also see from the numbers that teens are more willing to share data in general than adults. And we also saw that men tended to be more willing to share their data than women across all age groups. Then we also found that concerns for privacy violations, such as misuse of personal financial data or law enforcement surveillance, are very high, with 81% of adults and 72% of teens concerned. And in light of this, what we recommended from BEUC is, and we would like to see, is the Digital Euro having enhanced privacy than the current payment methods, both online and offline. Online can be achieved with sound GDPR implementation, clear purpose limitations. Offline, so potentially for proximity payments and lower amounts, can be enhanced with lower onboarding requirements and having steps to prevent the storage of data. And I think with this, I conclude my part on the presentation. So thank you all for your attention. And now I'm giving the floor to Nico, who will continue presenting the user research from the ECB. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for that. And thank you again, also Mireia, again for the presentation and also the research that you carried out. We're very happy, in fact, that you focused specifically also on teens, so on underage citizens, because it's part of our strategy to not only focus on the general population and as such and focus on the average voices, but to make sure we're not leaving anyone behind. So that's why we here in the research that I'm presenting now, we're focusing on two specific, distinct, special target groups, how we call it. That's first vulnerable consumers. So from the citizens' perspective, but then also from the merchant perspective, we thought that it's relevant that we don't only talk to the big merchants, to the large ones out there that maybe have a lot of capacity to make their voice heard, but to also focus specifically on small merchants. So what were our objectives with those two target groups? For the vulnerable consumers and then also for the small merchants, we were interested in two specific things. First, we wanted to understand the troubles that they're facing right now with their means of payments. So in their current payment behavior, what do they like? What do they don't like? Which kind of accessibility barriers are they facing? Which pain points are they having? But then secondly, we also wanted to give them the opportunity to explore a little bit their ideas. If they would have a magic wand and could design their own perfect payment solution, how would that in fact look like? What was the methodology that we conducted those interviews in? We, as I said, for the vulnerable consumers, focused on qualitative interviews. So we had smaller sessions. We did not run a broad, large-scale quantitative exercise, but a smaller qualitative one where we did have the opportunity to interact, talk with them directly. Maybe another side remark also on what is a vulnerable consumer, because I think we all have our understandings, but there is luckily some good research from the European Commission that we used as a basis to recruit specifically this target group. And then we were quite happy with the people that we identified that way to make sure we really understand their perspective towards a potential digital euro. And then just as a side remark on the reach, so for the vulnerable consumers, we did those interviews in every euro area country. The same is true for the small merchants. So also here we conducted the interviews in every euro area country. And also here we did have some parameters on our side where we defined basically what is a small merchant for us. So it was below certain thresholds in revenue, below a certain amount of people working for/with them. And then we also wanted to make sure that we're focusing on different sectors, so that we're having the corner stores, but we're also having a couple of small e-commerce providers that maybe have a small online shop. With that, if we then go to the next slide, we focus a little bit on what we learned from those interviews. So let me again start with the vulnerable consumers, with the key pain points, so what they currently, with their existing means of payment, struggle with. And here it mirrors a little bit what Mireia says, because also what we see here is they're mostly afraid of hacking and fraud. They do face access barriers. They are afraid of technical failures. They're not only afraid of them, they're also facing them, right? So it's also concrete experiences here that are built on their expectations. And then lastly, something that's maybe a little bit in addition to what Mireia also said, they do specifically face difficulties in budget tracking, specifically, again, also for online purchases. And maybe I can point out here one thing that links to what Mireia said as well, because one thing that was a little bit curious to us is find out that the accessibility and also hacking and fraud issues are not something that we can expect to fade out, right? So we don't see differences in the age here. Really, that means all age groups are facing those problems. We cannot just basically wait until those problems disappear. They will persist. They also persist in younger groups, and it's something that we have to address. If we look at the value drivers for vulnerable consumers, here again, we see some things that have been mentioned already. So it's security, reliability that score very highly. It's ease of use and simplicity, also euro area-wide acceptance, which is something that came out more, I think, in our research with vulnerable consumers compared to BEUX. And then also, again, a value driver that relates to the key pain point on budget tracking is the control and real-time visibility with regards to their actual spendings. So what do we take away from that? We believe that we can say reasons to use the digital euro for vulnerable consumers are most importantly three things. It's the euro area-wide coverage and offline coverage. It's onboarding support, and it's being able to issue a secure, fast, simple, and low/no fee payment instrument for them. Looking at small merchants, again here starting with the pain points that they are currently facing, I would say not surprisingly, here the most important issue that came up are fees and costs that they currently have with their payment providers. But it's also technical malfunctions that relates to offline, but not only, it's also malfunctions of integrating payment systems into their back-end infrastructure. And then also it's the administrative burden. And this is something that's maybe specific to small merchants, because as you can imagine, they don't have a big team. They don't have someone dedicated to look at their payment tools that they want to accept. It's an afterthought for them, and they just want it, quote unquote, to be simple, and they want it to be an afterthought, right? They don't want to put a lot on emphasis on them. Looking at value drivers, so what could make a small merchant accept a new means of payments. Here, again, I mean, it fits with the pain points. They want to have low and also transparent fees, right? Because currently they also say that they're sometimes a bit overwhelmed. They want to have a very high transaction speed and settlement, so they want to have the money on their accounts as quickly as possible. And then again, fitting to the pain points, it should be simple, integrated with their existing systems, and as little as possible administrative burden. So also here to summarize, what could make them accept a new means of payments? It's reduced fees, improved reliability and operational capacities, easy integration, and also a wide acceptance by the customers. With that, I hand over to Evelien to tell you how this relates to the digital euro in the next phase.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mireia, and thank you, Nico, for presenting and for doing the work, because in the end, we develop a digital euro for the end user, so for the consumers and for the merchants. So we need to make sure that the digital euro is fit and living up to the expectations that they will have. So let me take you along. So this slide should by now be recognized by most of you, but I think it's important that we keep repeating what the digital euro is. So in very simple words, digital euro is digital cash. We have had cash for ages. We know that it is highly appreciated. But we have seen also that whole society is moving to digital. We more and more do digital payments, or we are in digital environments where we want to pay. So we find it important that we actually keep the possibilities that we currently have. So where you have private means of payments, but also digital cash. So for us, the digital euro is just a natural next step in the advancements of our currency. I keep repeating, the digital euro is an addition to cash and will not replace cash. But it will be allowing to bring some of the benefits of cash also to the digital age, next to preserving cash. So it's a future-proof currency, as I have just explained, and we focus very much on making sure that it focuses on inclusion and it's a reliable option, meaning that you can trust that you can pay everywhere in the euro area. So we have that with cash. If you get a banknote in Germany and you travel to Portugal, you can pay. But if you look to digital means of payments, we don't have these kind of solutions, and the ones that we have and that come closest to this kind of coverage are non-European providers, which is actually then the third leg of the digital euro, that it really will improve our independence and our resilience, and making sure that we keep payments European and in our own hands. If we look, we have done more research, not only the Eurosystem, but also not only the ECB, but within the Eurosystem, more central banks. And we see that a majority of Europeans, when being explained what the digital euro would be, are interested of trying it. So I think for a product that has not been launched, I think this is very encouraging and showing that it's something that if done well, could be appreciated by Europeans. So we go to the next slide. Here we focus a bit on the needs, both from consumers and merchants, and you see overlap with the findings of our survey, which is good. And also here you see how this translates. So if we look to the consumers, privacy and fraud protection is very important. I'll come back to privacy in the next slide, just also to explain that the digital euro will be highly private. And we will also make sure that we have strong data protection measures, which is to prevent fraud, of course, or cyber attacks, but also if some harm is done, that there's a dispute mechanism so that indeed refunds can be facilitated. European-wide acceptance, I've explained that. So this is a digital euro would be accepted anywhere, anytime, and for any payment situation. So being between people to go to a physical shop, but also to do an e-commerce transaction. And there will also be an offline variant. And it will be easy to use. So we are working on the Digital Euro app, making sure it lives up to the highest standards of accessibility. And also in our rulebook, where we define the requirements for the apps provided by private players, if they want, that we will make sure that accessibility is very important. On the merchant side, the needs, of course, low and transparent fees. This is important for the merchants. In the end, it's also important for the consumers, because in the end, costs will trickle down from merchants to consumers. So in itself, the Digital Euro could provide low and transparent fees. On top of that, it will provide negotiation power against rather dominant players. Now there is very little negotiation power because they are so dominant. With having an alternative, there could be a more balanced market. Everyday transaction speed, so there will be an instant receipt of funds, and there is business continuity because there's also the offline function. And then, of course, an easy integration with their systems to minimize administrative burdens. We are working on standardized processes, so making sure that Digital Euro is the same everywhere across Europe, and it will allow to expand products and services. So if I go to the next slide, as promised, I would like to say a few more words on privacy, because it's of such an importance, both for the end users, but also for us as the Euro system. So we have two versions of a Digital Euro. If I start with the offline one, that one would be very close to cash. So you will be able to fund a wallet with offline Digital Euros. You will also be able to defund them and bring it back to your account. So this on and off funding of your account is like with an ATM. So a PSP will see, the PSP, not the ECB, but will see that you have uploaded, I don't know, say 50 Digital Euros, or that you will defund 100 Digital Euros. But the transactions will be between devices, so the payments are only known between the payer and the payee. So it's very close to the privacy that cash provides. Then we have an online Digital Euro where we and the legislators, because in the end this is the proposal of the legislators, need to find a balance between, on one hand, a high level of privacy, but on the other hand, we also want to make sure that we prevent fraud, that we prevent anti-money laundering, and that we prevent terrorist financing, for example. So that means that the banks, or the PSPs actually, to be more precise, will know, as they know today, your data, but then only the minimum data that is needed in order to do these kind of checks as I just described. And then when the transaction goes to the Euro system to be settled, they will anonymize the payments, meaning that the transactions that we get into our systems are anonymized, so we cannot link any payment to an individual. I think it's very important. So it's not only that we will make sure that data is not misused, we don't have that data in our systems. And then you could argue, okay, if it's so private, how would you prevent fraud? So here you see three measures that are included. So banks will need to do risk and fraud management as they currently do, so monitoring transactions. But on top of that, we will provide also a system that provides additional information, because they can see patterns across different PSPs. So making fighting fraud more efficient. There will be strong consumer authentication for Digital Euro payments. And last but not least, there will also be support for PSPs to settle fraud disputes and to make sure that consumers are heard when they are frauded. and helped. If we go to the next slide, some of this I have already said. So on the left-hand side, you see a very easy overview how it could work. So you start with setting up your digital euro account. Then you can put some money on that. You can do that by cash or via a linked account. And then once you have it, you can start paying either in a shop, you can online or between friends. And then for the offline one, as I said, it would be working like a wallet. So you can also put some on your phone to allow you to do offline payments. So on the right-hand side, you see an overview, and you see that actually the digital euro would be a solution that encompasses all the different benefits that cash, cards, and e-payment solutions have separately, but in the digital euro, this is combined in one solution. Let me now go to the next slide and focus on what would be the next phase. So where do we stand? So we started this journey already in October 2021, and then we did for 2 years the investigation phase. And that phase, sorry, let me take a sip. Yeah, I'm here. So, and then in the investigation phase, those 2 years, we did mainly the design of the digital euro. So how would it look like, going all kind of details on, would it be online, would it be offline, but also how would disputes work, all the things that we have just discussed. Then from there, we moved into the preparation phase that lasted also 2 years. And there we went one step further to really prepare through testing and experimentation. And actually this phase we have just closed at the end of 2025, as Fabian said at the beginning. And we went back to the Governing Council, who approved to move to the current phase. What we will do in this phase is actually to further prepare advancing technical readiness, deepening our market engagement, and support the legislative process. I'll come back to the legislative process. And with that, we foresee that we can do a pilot exercise in the middle of 2027. I would say actually second half of 2027. That will all allow us to further prepare for a potential first issuance in the course of 2029. This date of 2029 is connected to when the legislation will be adopted, because at the end of the investigation, roughly in summer 2023, the Commission published their draft legislation that would be the framework for the digital euro. Currently still discussions are ongoing, both with the Council and the Parliament. Based on the current state of play, we expect that there could be a digital euro legislation in 2026, and that would then allow us for a potential first issuance in 2029. So here a bit more deep dive on the focus of the current phase. So what you see is that we will continue with the legislative support of the our support of the legislative process. We will continue with our market engagement. So we will collaborate with payment providers, merchants, consumers, for example, in the context of the Rulebook Development Group. But we will also continue to do user research and testing of our solutions to make sure that once we launch in 2029, that we can really have the best digital euro we can think of. And then on the left-hand side, you see the technical readiness. So we will really start developing the technical foundations and initial system setup that will allow us to start the piloting in a run-up to the full readiness for a potential issuance in 2029. And with that, I think, let me double check, but I have reached the end of my presentation. Indeed. So we can now open the floor for any questions that there might be. Fabian.
Thank you, Evelien. Thank you, Nico. Thank you, Mireia, for these insights. perfectly in time to move to the second part of our seminar. And we are now ready to take your questions. For those that are in the seminar, please raise your virtual hand, and those following the live stream can also ask questions via Slido. We would like to, I see a hand up, but I actually can't see it anymore. Yeah. Anne-Marie, the floor is yours. Anne-Marie, please. We can't hear you. Then maybe let's have Anne-Marie later, and anybody else in the room who would like to ask a question. Gerard, please. The floor is yours.
Yeah, I'm struggling with the concept of the digital euro as a user of like we all are of the current financial system. You know, like I think most people are paid into a bank currently, and most people have a debit card and maybe a credit card. Okay, and notwithstanding the cyber, you know, that you've outlined very well there, the cyber threats to people these days and the worry that people have. Where's apart from that, where's the incentive for the ordinary European citizen to adopt a digital euro?
Thank you for the question. It's a very good question, and I think there are two layers to answer the question. So the first one is more a policy objective or a scenario planning objective, as you see it. As you described, if we now want to do payments, digital payments, you need to have your deposits at a bank or payment service providers, and then they give you means to pay. So it's them to decide how you pay, under which conditions you pay. You need also to give them your deposits, which is a great. I mean, we have seen all kind of evolutions there, but it's quite a lot dependency and I don't know. I would say. Power we give to the private industry to provide us with something that's so essential for payments. So up till now, you always had the choice. So either you pay with cash or you pay with digital means of payments. And that was fine when we did most of our payments in a physical environment and we could live with, well, we could really have a choice. But if we are more in a digital environment, we actually more and more don't have a choice. We need to pay digitally. So what we say is, going forward, it's important that there is, as governments have always done, that there is a money and a means of payment as a public good that secures, that it's safe, that it's easy to use, that it's efficient, so cheap. So that's one part of the answer. The second part of the answer is actually related to we have debit cards and credit cards. From your name, I assume you're from Ireland. I'm not sure if that's correct. But we see
I'm actually Swedish.
Ah, okay, great.
I'm only joking.
Yeah. No, but what we see is that the payment service providers that offer solutions to us more and more have come to rely on non-European players. So in 13, so out of 20 countries, for point of sale transactions, we're fully dependent on non-European players and on their conditions. And in the current time and age, we might not feel too comfortable about this. So, so maybe on a day-to-day basis, you're fine because you have a great bank or payment service providers. The conditions that they put for you to allow payment means are also fine with you. As long as politically everything goes well, we can be unconcerned about our payments being in a non-European hands. But we believe that it's important that we make sure that there's always a public option to pay, not dominant. You will not be forced, but if you want, you can use it. Securing that there is always an easy, safe, and cost-efficient means of payment. And secondly, it will secure that whatever happens, we have at least one pan-European solution to pay, making us independent of that. So that's one part of the policy position. Then the second part is why would you switch, or why would you start using the digital euro? And that's much more on product features. And there we have highlighted some of the features. So there is a difference between online and offline. So offline is not existing. So people might like to use that part for the privacy it gives. We will make sure that we have a very ease of use solution. But what we really have different, if you compare on the online one with existing means of payments, is that you can really travel e-commerce, peer-to-peer, and in the POS, and that you can pay everywhere. So we, as you know, we work at the ECB, we work in an European environment. If we go out for dinner in the evening, we cannot share our bill because one has a German bank account, the other a Dutch, and the other one a Portuguese, and we cannot do something as simple as that. So these are features that will be appreciated. So I hope that I've been able to answer your question.
Yeah, I know there's a lot of people want to go in. Can I just ask just once? You mentioned the word switch. So do you envisage, let's say, banks in European banks offering a second account to people in digital euro? Is that what we're saying? That, you know, you can stay and you need a second account, or you need to switch to another bank?
Yeah. No, so in order to use a digital euro, you need to get let's say an account. Is slightly different, but you need to get an identifier as you have a bank account. So because what would really happen is that those digital euros that you hold will be held by the central bank. So long story short, so you can go to a bank and ask, on top of your current bank account, say, can I also have a digital euro account? Or you can go to another payment service provider and ask there for a digital euro account. So that's the difference.
Just one last comment. I think it's great that the digital euro, there will be a basic bank account facility there, because that's really needed. And if it facilitates that to people who are currently financially excluded, that would be very good. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Now let's try again. Anne-Marie, please unmute.
Yeah, I think I'm fine now. My apologies, just not that familiar with Teams. Yeah, just to say my organization is Safeguarding Ireland, and we work to prevent harm and abuse of adults who are additionally vulnerable to abuse. So one of the main areas we focus on is financial abuse, and not just frauds and scams. So we're interested in that area, but our own research has shown us that 80% of financial abuse is perpetrated by somebody known to the victim. So it's not the faceless online scammers. So we are very interested in digital euro, because what we find in practice is with certain digital banks or aspects of digital banking, the tendency amongst adults at risk is to engage in informal workarounds. So, you know, if you find you cannot use online banking, you trust your credentials to somebody else. So we would be hoping that one of the key components here is simplicity. So, and also, you know, once we have a digital euro, we kind of see it. I think we were at a forum with the central bank the other day, and it was described as plumbing. I think it's more like electrification, really, that once this is created, there will be products that everybody can use, and that's up to industry and firms to design around this new capacity to push money out throughout the system. That's how we see it. So we would be hopeful that there would be innovation to meet the needs of groups that have been underserved and who are excluded. And Jared mentioned the basic payment account. It's really good in theory. In practice, the first view is that we currently find, and this is, you'll find it in many organisations that work with adults at risk in Ireland, there is a view taken that certain people whose capacity may be in question are not enabled and facilitated to open a basic payment account. So that's a real live issue at the moment. And again, we think that if there's got to be an entry point into, or some kind of gatekeeping around digital euro, you can't exclude people whose capacity is in question, because currently with cash, it doesn't really matter about your capacity. Somebody can just have 10 euros or 100 euros and spend it as they wish, and nobody is making determinations around their capacity. So that's one aspect. And then the second aspect is that we would hope that once the digital euro is available, that there will be specific focus on including people and ensuring that those products and services that do emerge are, you know, user-friendly, safe, meet their needs, etc. And also that there be very specific measures to counter financial abuse. So we see the emphasis almost entirely, certainly in Ireland. And if you look at some of the work from Europe around fraud and the various fraud matrix that emerge, they don't focus on the harms that are caused by people who are known and trusted by the victim. So that's a really, really important aspect, that would be included. And that, as I say, occurs because people are sometimes coerced, sometimes threatened, sometimes just simply have to rely on somebody else to facilitate their engagement online. And that is abused every day of the week we see it. So we would be hopeful that it would overcome that as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Anne-Marie. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you very much. Let me say something to start with, and then maybe Nico can say something on the innovation part. So indeed, the digital euro is designed to be highly inclusive. So in the basis of the design, so we have worked very closely with the consumer organizations, and we continue to do so to have a good understanding what is needed to be inclusive. Not only financially inclusive, but also financially digital inclusive. So indeed, simplicity, ease of use is very important. In the current draft legislation, the Commission has proposed that each member state has the obligation to appoint a public institution that could distribute the digital euro for more vulnerable consumers. And that would also then allow for more face-to-face contact and education to really make sure that we also bring people up to speed to feel equipped to do digital payments. So if you would talk to any legislator, so either on the council, but maybe Parliament is also going to discuss on this, I think it's important to stress from your side that this is important, that it stays in, and that this is supported by, for example, the European Parliament to stay in the legislation. On innovation, I'm fully there with you. I want to say one thing. In the end, the digital euro is a great payment solution. I'm not sure if we can resolve everything that you sketched. I mean, if it's with like cash, if I'm forced by my husband, I don't know, to give all my cash. I mean, there's a limit to what we can help and what we can't help. I just want also not to keep the hopes up too high that we can resolve everything that the people that you represent is in our remit. We will do the maximum that is possible there. Maybe Nico, you want to say something on the innovation part?
Yeah, thanks a lot for that. Maybe to start with, also to a comment you made at the beginning, Gerard, by saying that the currently payments are basically simple already. I would challenge that a little bit. Also coming back to the data that Mireia was saying, with above 40% have helped someone else with regards to their payments, right? Because Anne-Marie, that's what you're saying. People are involved in other people's payments, right? So this is one of the findings I think that struck us quite a bit, and that we're very much looking into it. One of the things how we're looking into it then also from the innovation side, and this is maybe something not for us, but for market participants to innovate on, is that maybe not every user of a digital euro needs to have the exact same user experience. So what do I mean by this? Maybe for, I don't know, someone very young, very educated in the digital field who has already used 10 different means of payments, it can be extremely quick and simple. It's one click, everything is done. But maybe someone else who does not have this exposure to digital means of payments yet needs some additional onboarding support, some additional safeguards in the app that they would use to use the digital euro, some additional checks they would need to go through to be able to offer a digital euro service in the end that makes them feel safe, secure, that they're confident in their ability to make a payment. Because, Anne-Marie, as you rightfully say, there is a lot of people who are not there yet, who do not feel secure yet when making digital means of payments. There is a lot of people who already have this confidence, but let's not forget about that there are also still quite a bit of people who face these accessibility challenges. So this is why we engage in user research like this. This is also why we in the future will continue to do activities such as this one, not only by ourselves, but together with market participants, to hopefully be able to offer user experience then to not the average digital euro user that might help them on board making digital means of payments.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. We have plenty of questions on Slido. Sebastian, we will get to you in a minute, but let's take a question from Slido. So Andrea is asking, how does the EU plan to manage transaction data in the digital euro, and who will have privileged access to that data? Evelien.
Yeah. So the draft legislation is very descriptive of which data can be handled by whom. It details it out to a very low level. So the legislator has an important voice on what is the information that the Eurosystem will have, and what is the information that banks could use from those payments. So this is the written in very much detail. As I said, in rough outlines for offline, the data will stay on your device, and we would, or actually the banks will see that you would put like 10 euros on your account, or that you want to put 20 digital euros back on your commercial bank account. But the transactions in between will stay between the devices. So there, again, the data will be on the device. The only data that needs to be shared is for us to make sure that there is no counterfeiting. But what data that is really described in detail in the legislation. And then for the online one, as I explained, so the banks will have banks, and if I say banks, it's always payment service provider. So the payment service provider will have access to the minimum data that they need to do anti-money laundering and counter-terrorist financing, and fraud management. So and that's the only reason why they can use that data if you don't give additional approval for using it further. And then this data will be pseudonymized. So what we will see is, say, an identifier, which is completely impossible for us to connect to any private individual. Then we see the amount that needs to be transferred, and then we see another identifier, which is the payee. And that is the level of detail and information that we have in the system. Then, of course, what we do for all the systems within in a financial institution, but so also within the euro system, we will have segregation of data and access to the system are only related to the duties that people will have. But again, the data that we will have on payments in our backend are extremely limited. So it's the two identifiers and the amount.
Thank you.
I hope I've answered your question.
Looks like it. Then let's move to Sebastian. Please unmute yourself.
Thank you very much for the session. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear
Super.
you.
Thank you for the answer, because I'm actually with a privacy watchdog based in Vienna. So you answered most of my questions that I already had, but I have one lingering question, and that pertains to strong customer authentication. Is the idea that in the end, SCA will be performed only with the payment service providers, and maybe in the future, because there will be an European identity wallet that has to be provided by the national member states, is an idea to integrate the digital euro within that national digital identity wallet? Thank you.
Thank you for that question. So indeed, it will need to follow SCA. And in the legislation, it says that payment service providers need to offer the possibility to consumers to identify themselves with the EU ID if they want. So it's not an obligation. So the payment service provider need to make sure that they can offer it, and then it's for the user to decide if they want to use that means of identification or another one.
Thank you. Then we can move to another question from Slido. So there were a couple of questions on offline and online. Questions are, how will you enable offline payments? What is the technology and the business model behind? And how will offline guarantee privacy?
Okay, some are rather detailed questions.
So how does offline work in the first place?
Yeah. I think I've explained it. So I was looking if I can find additional information or other words to explain the same. So how would an offline transaction work? So let me be even more practical. So you need to have opened first a digital euro account via PSP. Then you need to make sure that you have offline digital euros, and that you can do in two ways. So you can connect it to a bank account and then upload a certain amount of digital euros, or you can do this with cash. And if I then say if you upload offline digital euros, that means that these funds will move to a secure element, and a secure element is in your phone. And potentially there will also be a card with a secure element. But let's first, for ease of use, use the phone. So you will put these digital euros, let's assume it's 20, on your secure element on your phone. And then they are with you as cash would be. So the bank would know that you have at some point put 20 euros on, but then we can't follow because it's on your phone. Then you can do transactions, and you do the transactions by being in proximity, either with somebody else with a mobile phone, and you can transfer 20, well, if you have 20 euros, you can transfer, say 15 euros. And then it moves from the secure element of the phone to the secure element of the other phone. So suppose I want to pay Nico. We are in proximity, we are sitting close to each other, so we can then transfer this 15 euros. And then at that moment, it doesn't flow over any internet or anything. It will move between the two devices, and then it will be on the device of Nico. And immediately from that point, like if you have given a banknote, he can start using this 15 euros for doing something else. The same proximity payment you can do in a shop. So the important thing is that the offline that we have designed is always in proximity. So it's either two persons with mobile phones that are very close, or you go to a shop and you pay there on a payment terminal. Then at some point, Nico, at his birthday, he got lots of digital euros, and he thinks, okay, I carry around with me now 200 digital euros. I find that a bit too much because it is like cash. So if he loses his phone, he loses the 200 euros. It's like with the cash. So if you lose your wallet, you lose what's in it. So he might think 200 euros I find a bit much. Then he can either go to a payment service provider and defund it in cash, or he can put it on his commercial bank account. So that's how it works. We are investigating a card. If whether this could also work with a card, there are some user friendliness obstacles that we still need to tackle. So we're investigating if that can be done and how this can be done. So this is still under research. And the last thing that I want to say is that since it's on a secure element, you cannot do endless amount of transactions without going online. At some point, you need to go online because the information on the secure element gets full. So you need to offload it. And that would be the moment that the PSPs and we can do checks that there's no like false banknotes, but no false digital euros invented. I hope that has explained a bit more on how offline would work.
Thank you. And let me just point to our previous civil society seminar, which focused on offline, which is also online. And you can watch the recording if you wish to have a deeper dive on that topic. So we are almost at the end. There is one more hand raised from Mahir. Maybe we can do a really quick one, Mahir. Please unmute.
Yes, thank you very much. I think that's very convenient that I'm at last for a very quick question. I'm Mahir Alkaya for the Consumentenbond, which is the Consumer Association in the Netherlands. And my question is very briefly, what are the plans on the pilot that is being planned for 2027, which is pretty quick? Which aspects do you plan on testing first in that pilot? Do you plan on also involving consumers and consumer associations? Which countries? What are the current thoughts on that? Thank you.
Thank you very much. And it's a very good question. So I will be relatively brief. We're going to publish something either tomorrow or the beginning of next week, which will give a bit more information on how the pilot would look like. But let me already say a couple of things. So the pilot will start with being, say, what you call an internal pilot. So we will test it within the Euro system, so in a very secure environment, so only with people that work in the Euro system as a first step. Of course, we need to make sure that they can pay for things, so they can pay, I don't know, in the canteen, or so we're looking for some merchants that would help us, and of course some PSPs to be play the role that they would also play in a digital euro. So that's how we will start. Of course, then if we move towards potential issuance in 2029, more testing and more also potentially at some point external testing with people outside the euro system will be foreseen, but we will start with an internal pilot. It will also formally not be a digital euro at that point in time, because the legislation will not be enforced probably, but it would technically functionally look like a digital euro that we are designing. And it will probably also be a subset of what we are designing. So not everything in all aspects, but we will make a carve out. as I said, we are planning to publish in the coming days a first information on what we foresee. And tomorrow, actually, we have the European Retail Payments Board, where also the consumer organizations are represented. We will do already a first presentation to all the stakeholders in the European Retail Payments Board on what are our plans. So I hope with that I've been able to answer your questions, at least for now.
Thank you, Evelien. We have reached the time. Many thanks again to our guest, Mireia. Thank you to Nico. Thank you to Evelien. Thank you to you for your continuous interest and the vibrant discussion. And
can I
yes,
say one
please.
more thing? I touched upon it already, but it's good for all of you as being interested in the digital euro and as a civil society, that at this moment, actually, the real discussion in the parliament on the digital euro and the content of the digital euro is starting. And I think it's important that the legislators hear from all stakeholders. So if there are points that you find important for your organizations, then the coming weeks, months, but I would say more weeks, are important to reach out to members of the European Parliament, because they are currently reflecting on the legislation and on the potential amendments that they would want to propose on the legislation. So if you want to reach out to them and to make sure that your voice is heard, this would be at the moment to make sure that they understand what you value in the proposal of the Commission, where you would have other suggestions. We find it very important that in this debate, all voices are heard from all stakeholders, so merchants, payment service providers, but also I think consumer organizations and civil society are very important. So please take note that if you want to make your voice heard, this is a good moment to reach out to members of the European Parliament. And now I hand back to Fabian.
Thank you, Evelien, for this very important edition. And I wish you all a very nice festive season ahead. Thank you.